Hi, Stu Rich here with our next installment in the Facilities Management Minutes interview series. Our goal with this series is to share with you the perspectives of some of our industry's most interesting thought leaders. Today's guest is Shelly Nooner. Shelly currently serves as the General Manager of Global Civil Design and Engineering at Trimble. Shelly has worked at a variety of management positions at Trimble over the 20 years, using her capabilities to understand customer requirements and her industry experience to help establish valuable and integrated solutions for them across the facility lifecycle. Trimble's Constructible design process, a blend of hardware and software offerings to implement and manage a truly constructible design, are compelling, and Shelly describes them with great passion. If you enjoy this content, please tap the like and subscribe buttons to make sure you are notified of new interviews as they become available. And if there is someone you want to hear from, let us know in the comments below or by reaching out to marketing@cartograph.com. Shelly, thank you very much for making the time to visit with us today. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to for quite a while. So I'm really grateful for your willingness to participate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I'd like to start by understanding just a little bit more about what makes you you. What was your personal journey to bring you from a young college kid up into someone that's managing a major division at Trimble? Tell us about your personal journey.
All right. So I guess what I would say is my personal journey started out at Texaco, actually. And what led me into the construction industry was an opportunity to go work for a very small pocket laser company who kind of recruited me. And that's what was my first step into construction, right? And I think what I did was walk in, and I'm a super curious person. So when I could see the technology, I really wanted to get on a job site. That was kind of the first thing I wanted to do out of the gate. And I think once I kind of saw what was involved with construction, what it was like to get out there, what it was like to help people who were struggling with connecting, whether it was a hardware device or a piece of technology, I got very curious then. And so our company was actually acquired by Trimble 20 years ago. And I came in with that pocket laser company, which, by the way, is the foundation for our Hilti JV today. So it's that is super interesting, and I'm really proud of that. But I also, once I got into Trimble, I really wanted to learn more about the other industries we serve. I'm very fortunate. I've been able to move in my career around multiple groups, right? So to really understand geospatial, to really understand construction, to really understand civil construction. And I think it was probably what keeps me in it is being able to solve some very hard, complex problem that I think I can help people resolve, whether it's through technology or people or great software, great solutions. So here I am today, doing some amazingly awesome stuff that I really enjoy doing in Trimble, which is working in the civil infrastructure space now.
That's very cool. So Trimble is interesting in the industry in that it has this unique blend of hardware and software. It appears that over the past 10 or 15 years, Trimble is actually transitioning from a primarily hardware vendor to more of a blended or even predominantly software vendor. But that positions you uniquely to solve some of our constructing problems, some of our the problems of managing and executing on construction process. Trimble has this concept called the Trimble Constructible process. Can you describe that a little bit and how that brings elements of hardware and software together to solve specific problems?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when we look at Constructible, if I back up for a second, I would say that nothing that is ever just designed is what's actually built. Because there is a lot of people in the building side of construction. And I think so when you look at designing something, being able to make that model constructible means you're going to get, kind of geometry and context to what's happening in the field, right? You're going to have attribution layers that you need to have to actually go put a model to a device, right? And that device can be a machine, it can be a handheld. And what I think is Trimble has a long history of being survey GIS, the people in the machine control out in the field. So we have a great knowledge of what it takes to take a design and actually really do a building from it, or do a road, or do a bridge from it. And I think that does position us kind of uniquely, because when you look at the construction industry as a whole, you're looking really at, especially with this digital transformation that's happening in the world, right? You're looking at design and engineering, you're looking at the construction, and you're looking at the operate and maintain. The missing element there is what was actually built, and how was it built, by the way. It's not just what it was or what the materials were, but it's how was it built. There's process involved in that as well. So I think we are uniquely positioned to actually pull in that as constructed data or as built data into a 3D model going forward. That leverages the history of having all of those devices and software applications in the field, right? Because that data is now extremely valuable into how we're going to digitize as we move forward in construction.
I love that phrase, geometry in context. I think that's really descriptive. One of my friends, Brent Jones at Esri, comes from a survey engineering background. And I think the most excited I've ever seen him is when there was first the ability to put a Trimble device on the blade of a dozer, and then pull those positions into a real-time GIS based, but really geospatial understanding of the position of that blade in survey grade 3D coordinates as the dozer was moving across the site. It's a tremendous advance. So in the process of all this, we're generating just enormous amounts of data. And that data comes in a variety of different forms and formats. And then the need then to interchange data for different purposes across the life cycle of a project or the life cycle of a asset, it becomes more and more critical. Trimble has a concept called Trimble Connect. Can you describe Trimble Connect a little bit and the role Trimble Connect plays in this whole conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So Trimble Connect is a common data environment of which a bunch of different, I would say, inputs or data formats can come in and be utilized on a 3D model. We have kind of a unique technology and something that we can transpose. And what I would like to say is file flip to an object level view. So whatever the input that comes in is, then it can be displayed, both the geometry and the location and the attributes as an object level on a model, right? Which is extremely valuable. I think the other thing that makes Connect extremely valuable is that there are multiple people providing those inputs, right? And project progress or operation progress or has to do with people being able to access information when they need it. And I think, as long as you can connect stakeholders through a common data environment, again, mobility of data, right? And the Internet of Things, so that everybody's working off a common framework, a common model, a common understanding of what's going on, right? And when it's going on. So Connect is actually our solution that helps us provide those capabilities for stakeholders to collaborate in a common data environment within a common data model, whether it's design and engineering, whether it's the construction process, or whether it's even operate and maintain. So I think it's super unique. I was really, really lucky to be involved in Connect very early on. I think we just recently passed 20 million users in Trimble Connect. So the collaboration is real and it's happening with stakeholders coming in, and it's a great platform.
It's easy for me to think about Trimble Connect when it comes to geometry. So maybe geometry coming from SketchUp or from Tekla or from different sources and finding a common place in Trimble Connect. Does it also provide a project management context? So for products like eBuilder or other project management kinds of products to contribute to that overall understanding of your overall portfolio?
Yeah, it's Trimble Connect does very well on the project-based environment. So it will catalog via project. What's really interesting is one of the advancements we've made is around a common project, right? And a common project allows multiple stakeholders to share in a common view of one project instead of many. And I think, when you think about the massive amount of information that you're utilizing during a project or actually during an asset's life cycle, right? So you have cost and labor and materials and location and as-built data and design data and capital planning and project data and ERP data. And so Connect does very well at housing folder file structures around common projects so that different stakeholders can access what they want to, right? So there is a very much of a view of design engineering, owners, what an owner cares about seeing, what a contractor cares about seeing. I think one of the things that will be interesting in the future is looking at a platform level common data environment and then really, really understanding who the stakeholders are and what kind of information they're looking at any given time, and basically being able to serve that information appropriately to the right person at the right time. So collecting that data in all one place is very valuable to that future state.
So the interesting thing about the times that we live in is that the technology is evolving so rapidly, even within the context of a large project. The technology may have evolved several cycles before that, between conception and execution of that project. Where have you seen the kind of the most interesting or the most compelling examples of success in your experience?
I think one of the things that kind of shortens up the life cycle from design to construct is the ability to be able to bring the contractor and the design and engineering to the table in the beginning of a project so that a design and engineering firm can really understand from a contractor's point of view what it takes to build that operation, right? And honestly, if you think about it, we with the advancement of technology for machine control and devices and accessibility in the field for models and the use of 3D modeling or 4D or 5D, you really push a lot between those two kind of groups to manage, right? And the sooner you get them kind of partnering in that project together, I've seen that is something that takes a lot of time off a project as far as completion, from start to completion. I think it's super interesting because only then does design and engineering and the contractor get better and better and better at this process as well, right? So, and by the way, it definitely, some of these projects are years and years and years long. So you're exactly right, because things change and you bring in other, I would say, subs or joint ventures into the project, and they're using a different system and a different technology. So, again, going back to that common data environment, if you start from there, then you can kind of ingest more of that throughout the years it might take to finish something.
I've seen some interesting, maybe depressing studies recently about how far behind the design and construction industries lag in terms of digitization compared to other industries. What are some of the aspects of this world that we live in that make it so hard to bring this industry up in terms of our ability to execute by leveraging digital tools?
So I think it's interesting because when you look at those studies and then you kind of peel it back a little bit and you start looking from the different main stakeholders' perspective, they all have a different view of where they think digitization will help them, right? So for a contractor, he thinks that digital tools, he or she thinks that digital tools are going to help with scheduling. And scheduling is a major pain point, right? And an engineering design firm may think that they're going to be helped by less change in the design to the construction process. So I think the thing that is going to be interesting is understanding how to segment the different pain points and then make a common, kind of like a common framework that everybody can wrap around and agree to. It's also going to be interesting. It is on us to actually go out and create those connections, because a lot of times these groups don't talk, right? And they're, I think bridging them from their pain points is going to be super interesting in the future. Definitely, I think construction, everybody, I guess I read 100 articles a day that say construction is fragmented. And my mind goes straight to, well, we can fix that, right? So how do we fix that, right? And I think a lot of it is intersecting the pain points of the different segments operating in a project, and then finding common ground where the handoffs occur, right, between their processes and helping link them there. So yes, I think I read the same articles you do for sure. And but I am excited because I do think there's an awareness now, right? So there's a big awareness that we need to fix this. There's another thing that's happening where people are asking the right questions. How do we do it? How do we start? Where do we start? I mean, it's huge, right? So I think for us, I mean, at Trimble, we have a massive global footprint. And I think, there are some geographies like Europe who are way far advanced in BIM, 3D modeling, and common data environment, and adoption of digital tools. I think what's been great is to, kind of extract those learnings and try to help in other geographies who are just starting or where investments being made, which we do see happening. I think the other thing too is, and this is where I think I feel very fortunate that Trimble is uniquely positioned, is a lot of stuff that's starting to happen is starting with the surveyor. And the adoption of BIM is happening with somebody who understood the data and the existing condition and geometry and location and attributes, and somebody who needs to bring that into, they've dealt with models for a very long time, right? And somebody who understands the construction process because they're out there during it as well. So I think that's a person who is starting to help bring things together, is investments made, is tools expand. And then, like I said, I think learning from other, geographies and locations who we know are way far ahead, who have, and by the way, we have velocity from that, right? So in some geographies, like here in North America, we should have a leapfrog velocity occurring off of what's been going on in Europe, right? So it shouldn't take us a very long time to jump on that and figure it out, right?
So let's drill into that just a little bit more. Europe, to your point, seems to be quite far ahead of us in terms of adapting or adopting different standardized approaches to digital design and standardized models for how we design and construct and operate our infrastructure. Is there something about the European market that makes them more able or more willing to adopt and move forward more quickly? Are there particular roadblocks that we face in the U.S. that are holding us back? And if so, how do we target those for removal?
That's a great question, actually. So I think what I would say is having, and I think I've said this earlier, which you see a lot in Europe, is it's the project delivery mechanism, right? So if you're bringing the design, engineering, the contractor, and the owner to the table together, things tend to happen, right, at a more cohesive, a faster rate. I think also there is this thing about leveraging the shared cost savings that you might achieve from that type of partnership working on projects. I think there also is this element of a very, Europe is on the forefront of sustainability. And I think that's also another thing that we really have to look at in other geographies is the real kind of the people push to care about that. The people push to care about building. There's only so much Earth, right? So what we're building, let's make good use of it, and then let's make sure it lasts, right? And I think in Europe, you've seen they really care about that. That's in their metric, right? And they really care about things, like climate change and carbon impacts and things like that. And I think there's some there's laggards in geographies who actually haven't paid attention to that before. So I think it's, getting the right people to the table, all the right stakeholders. I think it's also getting the metric in there around shared cost savings, right? So it's not that you make less, it's that you actually make more if you do it better, if you do it better. I think I also see in Europe quite a bit. They have a big responsibility around creating sustainable communities that they live in. And so they're very joined in that effort. So, what I do say is I think there's a big generational shift happening where your younger generation was basically born with a cell phone in their hands. They see the use of digital. You're getting fed a lot more information very quickly. And they care that their infrastructure is going to last. They have a environmental and a social difference than maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
So we've been talking a lot about design and construction so far. This week, Trimble announced the acquisition of Agile Assets, a great company that really focuses on operations more than design and construction. Can you talk to us a little bit about Trimble's vision for the operations phase of the life cycle and how what you're doing empowers infrastructure operators to be more successful, more efficient, more effective?
So first of all, great company, great people, 100% right. We are extremely excited about this one and inviting them into the Trimble family. So I think a couple of things right out of the gate that this became really important to us. One was, in the asset management systems, majority of the time they don't have the as-built data. They're starting from either the design data, which is missing some valuable information on how to operate and maintain, right? So how it was constructed or what materials were used or the process that was used. So, we saw right out of the gate our ability to connect the as-built data directly to the operate and maintain phase, right? I think, it's funny a lot. When I was talking to Agile, I said, okay, well, we get design data. And I said, well, gosh, you're missing all this really valuable construction data. By the way, you need the design data, but you need the construction data too. It helps in, treatments they may pick, what they may do to repair, how long the maintenance schedules look like, how they would task, when they would task. I also think there was a great link for us on the inspection element, right? So from a surveying and inspection side of our business, I think we had a great ability to improve that data flow for the asset management and operations system, right? And to make that more cohesive and quicker. And there was a way to look at that on how that could be innovated on it as well, right? So if you look at the future of maybe some of the inspection is autonomous in some way, right? So we saw that was a potential. So I think it was out of the gate helping the asset management system, the operate system, with current as existing condition data. And also knowing that the operations and the maintenance of an asset is going to benefit in future state of reconstruction because we have that information, right? So what did work, what didn't work, what deteriorated faster, what, all of those factors that go in, into that, we saw where that could be a huge potential to help resolve something also as well broken in the industry.
So many of our viewers will be owners and operators of infrastructure, buildings and infrastructure. What kinds of technology trends should we, infrastructure owners and operators, really be very carefully watching to better empower our organizations to drive the most value out of our infrastructure going forward?
I think the use of drone technology, some regulations that are coming down. I think being able to be agnostic at a platform view to the inputs, right? So, because I think, we could probably name what's here today. We could probably think out maybe, okay, here's some other things that might come. But I also think being able to ingest different files in different formats, photogrammetry is very interesting. Photogrammetry layered upon construction data is extremely interesting. And also what I would say is being able to see behind the existing conditions. So if you think about, maintaining a bridge, you don't want to just do a line of sight. You want to know what's causing that, what's behind there, right? So how was that built? So I would say, photogrammetry is really getting very interesting. Mobile mapping and scan data and those kind of things into a model are starting to be interesting. But I would say if you're going to future-proof yourself, really look at being and partnering with someone who can be agnostic to a data input, right? And help you drive a data model that you can use in the future.
So this question is a kind of a variation on that theme, I suppose. You have an interesting position at Trimble in that you have a bird's eye view over a very wide range of the company's offerings. Of all the things that Trimble is working on, what are the initiatives that are most exciting to you?
Connecting design, construction, and operate and maintain data is very interesting to me. Platform 3D model is extremely interesting. And the use of, platform and 3D modeling across industries is very interesting, right? So how can multiple industries actually benefit from that? I think it's, I probably got in here because I was curious. Now I'm curious. Now I've got a really complex problem and I really want to go fix it. So, focusing on, my focus on civil, roads, bridges, transportations, ports, waterways. But I also think there is this very, what I would say, horizontal technology view happening as well, right? Where, there's technology being utilized to capture data. I think the uses of that data are going to be exponential, right? And I think we don't even know what that looks like today, right? We just know what we need to know today. I think, so I think it'll be kind of, how do you connect horizontally, both platforms, and modeling capabilities, across industries and many owners, design engineers, contractors, whether you're building a road or you're building a building. So I think that's exciting. It's exciting to think that you could use design and engineering capabilities horizontally and vertically, indoor, outdoor. I think another one that is kind of probably super exciting is autonomy, right? I mean, you got to figure out that foundation and you've got to be able to put that data together and you got to understand the workflow before you're ever going to drive an autonomous anything. And then I was thinking recently that, I think 10 years ago, I was thinking about underground BIM. And I was thinking, I was only thinking I actually had a very narrow view and said, okay, well, this would be great if somebody could do underground BIM. The technology's not there yet, but to really understand that for safety, right? For safety reasons. Mining actually was where I was wrapping my head. But now I'm thinking you need underground BIM because you need to be able to move goods and services, not just people. And so there's this whole other thing, again, platform, model, data, driving those kind of things. So
Shelly, you're a little unique in your position in that you're a woman. You're a woman who has a very very responsible position in a technology company in an industry that is very male driven. Can you talk to us a little bit about your experience as a woman in this industry, and what can we do to make this industry better about cultivating young women of talent to invest their talents and their careers in this space?
I think I have two-part answer to this question. One, if you are a woman in this, in this industry, and then two, for companies out there who are looking at how do we do this better. So I'll take the company one first. So I think it's really important to have a diversity metric for your company, right? And it's really important that from a top-down view, that people, and a top-down push, that people understand that we want to create diversity and equity and inclusion in our company. And we're going to have a metric we're going to track on this, right? So that one, from a company perspective, really, first of all, it helps attract talent, and it helps getting other people in the company to be thinking about it, right? And so I think that is extremely important for companies looking on how we're going to do this better. I mean, let's put a metric up and let's go track it and let's drive against it, right? I think from being a woman, I would say a couple things. One, do not be scared to raise your hand every chance you get and ask for an opportunity to go do something big, really big. I call it, I'm not scared to jump off a cliff. And I think, that's one of the things that's helped me in my career is I just kept raising my hand saying, I want to go do that. I would like to learn that. And, you don't get told yes all the time, right? And I think you might have to go to the well a little more, but keep going because, I found that, I have found some of the most interesting, talented, educated women coming into construction, that are super amazing people to work with, by the way, extremely educated, which is, there's a lot to learn here. And I think it's becoming an attractive industry for women, actually. I think it's, like I said, just don't be scared to continue and don't be scared to get invested in it, right? I think if those two things come together, where women push more to raise their hands and say, yes, 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 me, I want to give that a try. And companies have a metric around this, that you'll see more diversity at the table. I'm fortunate. I work for a company who does both, by the way. So I feel very lucky. So I think, but don't be scared to also be the woman who asks for the diversity metric in your company.
I have noticed, actually, that Trimble seems to be a hotspot of really inspiring, capable, excited women, for whatever reason. So something y'all are doing there is working. I've asked a bunch of kind of different and disparate questions today. What have I not asked? What portions of your experience would you like to be able to share that I haven't specifically asked about today?
I would say a good question would be, what could an owner specifically do to help drive digital transformation and bring the industry together? Because I think there is a lot of untapped, and authority may be the wrong word, but I think there's a lot of untapped influence that owners have in this process, that once utilized might help drive things a little bit faster. I think, putting out there the expectation to have data back a certain way, or have more robust data or complete data, or use of a model, or kind of, mandate's a hard word, but kind of really starting to influence by, driving toward that. I think there is, like I said, a lot of untapped influence that can be had there from an owner's perspective. And when you said a lot of our viewers are, owners, I think that would be uh, a request actually, is to say, wow, you have a lot of influence in changing this and more sustainable, right? Like drive more sustainability, looking at those things. I think that's a good topic for somebody to touch. I mean, we see all of this information that says, yes, construction's a laggard, construction's fragmented. But what I don't see is who's gonna step up and like kind of take an influence and run with it to actually help the industry. I think owners have a big play here.
That's really interesting. Some of the folks that we've interviewed in this series and that I think have been most influential on the industry have been owners' representatives. We started this series by interviewing Deke Smith, who spent much of his career in the Army Corps of Engineers and then at the Defense Department. Jack Dempsey, again, he started in the Coast Guard and then went to the Defense Department. Brian Cullis, Air Force, to the Defense Department. And the influence that those men had on the standards that we use, the approach that we use, how we manage our design and construction processes, how we collect and document data, was really quite significant. God bless them for the level of patience that they had to, years and years and years trying to move the battleship that is the Pentagon. But I think they were largely quite successful, and we all benefit from their efforts. I see GSA as being another very influential player as an owner's rep driving certain kinds of things, at least in this country, and other standards groups over in Europe. I think the higher ed industry is starting to understand the role that they can play, even if maybe they're not quite as focused yet as they will become. And I look forward to that. That'll be great.
Yeah, I think, and I also think it's super interesting as we start to see more what I would say is project delivery mechanisms, right? So, not that you've got more than just the traditional way of doing things which bring more people to the table up front, which I think is really important, right? I mean, it's interesting because one of my first kind of Johnson to Trimble Connect was around more the buildings and the vertical space, and there was a super interesting project about bringing the user of that space up front, right? So yes, we're going to go build this building, and then all these people are going to occupy it. And it's like, okay, that's great. Then the people go in there to occupy it, and they're like, we're missing this, and we're missing this, and where is this? And you thought, oh gosh, if you had those requirements from who's going to use it, not necessarily who owns it, who's using it. And so I think that's also super important. The user of whatever you're doing, getting those requirements into the process, which by the way is very difficult to do at times, but I think it makes the utilization better.
So tell us that story, if you wouldn't mind. I think it's a great story, and I think it's great on so many levels. Go ahead, tell the story.
Okay, I will tell the story. So we have a foundation in Trimble, and one of the things that we had been working on for years was something called Project Spectrum. And Project Spectrum was kind of the proliferation of SketchUp for people on the spectrum, right? Who were very spatially oriented. And so I was so lucky to be involved in this because it just really opened my eyes to the world. But so we actually, we had they were through this Project Spectrum, the University of Utah was going out and they were designing a building to hold camps for autistic children. And so what the architect firm decided was, okay, we're going to actually bring the kids who are going to be in the camp into the design process and ask them what they want, right? And so they gave them the opportunity through SketchUp to design this building. And so it was so cool because they came back and the architect said, well, gosh, this is so strange. there's no TV or no electrical outlets in your common area, right? Because the rest of us, we're watching TV, we're connected to our phones, all of that, right? And the kids said, well, no, that's where we make friends. So it was this whole great, wow, people say we don't want to make, that's where we make friends. And I thought, oh my gosh. And so my mind just kind of exploded to, wow, if they brought the users of spaces into the conversation, how much better that space would be for the user, right? This is an amazing story. I probably told that story 1,000 times in my life because it's really interesting.
It's particularly interesting right now as we are kind of reimagining our relationship with the office environment in the wake of COVID. Suddenly, the whole way we understand what the office environment provides to us to enable work to be better is turned on its head. So hopefully there will be more of that pattern in the future. I think it's a great story.
Yeah, I hope so too. It'll be interesting as we move back toward office environments, as we do hybrid models, as we, it's an interesting journey over COVID. I mean, looking at some of the companies around and how they managed it and got through it together. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the space utilization of the future looks like, for sure.
Shelly, you've been so gracious with your time today. I have enjoyed this conversation very, very much and very grateful for your time. I'm excited to see the new things that you and Trimble are going to do in the coming years. Congratulations on Agile Assets. Again, I think that's a great acquisition for you. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you for having us.